In your mind, make the Ferris wheel turn right. Now make it turn left. Now right. Now left. Now right. Now left. Now right again. Now, using the same principles as before, try to change the direction in which the train is moving. You can will it to move forwards and backwards. Forwards. Backwards. Forwards. Backwards. You see, our intentions are quietly shaping the world, and that is exactly how blessings work. It should be obvious by now that I'm an avid fan of horror. I'm a bloody Main Abyss fan after all. The genre, despite not having the greatest reputation when it comes to quality, has a very special place in my heart. There are only certain stories and themes that can be conveyed through this medium, and when a director truly utilizes this genre and respects some of its traditions, you can tell some genuinely compelling and downright horrific stories. Take Junji Ito as an example, a mangaka that everybody and their disembodied dads know about. While his ability to invoke fearful emotions mostly comes through intense and honestly beautifully illustrated body horror alongside horrific and cosmic horror storytelling, what makes his work always so interesting and unique is the way in which he makes the ordinary not so ordinary. How something as simple and mundane as the pattern of a spiral is something to be feared. Every design choice, every storytelling element, every aspect of this manga in particular is connected by this very simple shape. What I love about Junji Ito as a writer is that while he utilizes some of the tropes of the horror genre, he manifests his own in his work. The idea of a spiral never freaked me out before, but now when the idea of that pattern comes to mind, my thoughts immediately trace back to Uzumaki. And now I'm terrified of snails. The fact that horror can cause your brain to make these connections is precisely why I love the medium so much. It can make things even smaller than my micro penis stick out to you in a way you never thought possible. Take David Bruckner's 2017 The Ritual, a monster film where the true terror comes from feeling like your own friends are complete strangers. Or a classic example is Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, where it makes the very concept of large empty spaces feel horrifying, completely defying the traditional horror of tight spaces coated in darkness, and making that openness and light something to be feared. Horror can turn these seemingly normal things into something absolutely horrifying, and the Incantation plays right into that. This is a film unlike any other. It is, in my opinion, the scariest contemporary horror film ever made. To call it a film would do it a disservice. It's barely even that. If anything, it's a collection of events with the intention of being seen by someone. It's full of incredible twists and turns and isn't reliant on cheap jump scares and gore to grip you. In fact, the scariest thing about this found footage movie is uncovering the very truth behind it. The moment you realize just what is happening, the very moment your brain makes the connections and defines what it is you're actually seeing, is honestly one of the scariest things I have ever felt when engaging with a piece of media. I need to warn you in advance that this video isn't like my usual one, and it isn't at all for the faint of heart. I'm gonna tap into some pretty intense things, so if you don't feel like being spooked or disturbed, by all means please click off this video. If you have a phobia or firm belief in things like curses as well, or you just don't want to take your chances with bad mojo, I also advise clicking off this video. But to those who are still here, I thank you, because I've been wanting to talk about this film for so long. I need a platform to vent my opinions. Kevin Ko's Incantation is a contemporary horror cinematic masterpiece. Not only is it my favourite piece of live-action media out of last year, but it's my absolute favourite found footage film ever made. While this type of horror has been done to death, and there is usually a negative stigma around it, this film utilizes what is great about the genre. In particular, its purpose. It isn't a found footage film because it's easier to film. It's instead a found footage film because it needed to be. I'll talk more on that later, but first let's tap into what the Incantation is actually about. The story of the Incantation is about a single mother by the name of Ronan, who is also our lead camerawoman. She has finally earned custody of her child Dodo after 6 years due to the courts and child protection services proclaiming her unfit to raise her child due to an intense psychological trauma. She exclaims that she is cursed by a deity of misfortune, and that she isn't insane, but proving this to be the case is impossible, as the more people Ronan brings into the situation, the more people who are now susceptible to her circumstances. Those who are made aware of her circumstances are more at risk to the curse. But it appears that after 6 years, she has managed to find a way to combat it, and feels that she can protect her daughter from these potential hauntings. But little does she realize that a task as great as that is far beyond her. And now, look, you may think premises like this are quite silly. The idea of a mother putting her daughter so close to the curse just because she loves her is quite selfish. And yes, it is. But this curse affects even those who are vaguely familiar with it. And the more you know about the deity itself, the more intense the curse actually is. Dodo, being a blood relative to Ronan, was at some point going to suffer from the curse anyway. But to me, there's a deeper level to their connection. A connection that surpasses logic completely. A connection that defies common sense, known as love. Ronan knows that by reuniting with Dodo, she'll be closer to the curse than she ever has been, but her love for her child surpasses that logic. While Dodo has grown up in essentially an orphanage until her mother was fit for parenting, she has only ever had one connection with her caretaker Ming, who takes on a dad role in her absence, but even then, it's not that strong a connection. Dodo never grew up with a mother, but always wanted one. Dodo needs Ronan as much as Ronan needs her, even if it's at their own detriment. Love will make you do the nonsensical, kind of like when you're a kid and, you make fun of your crush. Or in my case, you showed the chicks at primary school your Beyblading gang t-shirts. Yes, I did this. No, it didn't work. There's a lot more to this story though, but I'll get back to that later. This film is shot in and out of order, so in order for me to express my feelings about it, I kind of need to jumble the order a bit, but I swear it'll make sense down the line, just bear with me. Throughout the film, Ronan encourages the viewer to partake in various activities. She wants someone to watch this film and engage with it. In fact, the very opening shot is this graphic of a Ferris wheel. We see it spin in a circular motion, and Ronan's voice encourages the viewer to use their mind to change its direction. A second graphic appears of a train travelling in one direction. Using the same trick, you can control which way the train is heading. She asks that you remember a certain symbol to immortalize it in your brain by the end of the count of 10, alongside a hymn that's chanted to ward off evil. While spoken in Mandarin, the subtitles aid the pronunciation. While you don't have to speak the blessing, just reading it in your mind will have the same effect. This blessing acts as a means to protect those undergoing the God of Misfortune's curse. Which at this point, if you've realised, is Ronan reaching out to somebody to help her protect Dodo against the powers that be. For Dodo is suddenly able to see spirits, but they are malevolent. They have her adhere to their words and lead her to do dangerous things. They also actively take ownership of her body and cause patches to manifest on her skin that slowly peel, revealing a horrific spotted pattern. Ronan doesn't accept this fate and chooses to rise against it, doing whatever she can to protect her child from the curse. Teaming up with Ming, they run from social workers and police. Ronan, despite being aware of the curse, is struggling to combat it now. She's desperate to find answers, so the three of them have a drive to a shrine in hopes of the priest and his wife who reside there finding a means to help them. They agree to an exorcism, but must risk their own lives to do so, essentially putting themselves in a position that leaves them vulnerable to the curse. To ensure a protective barrier though, Dodo must not eat for the next 7 days, which is impossible for a child. But with no options left, Ronan agrees to the conditions, and it is one of the most gut-wrenching things I have ever seen in a movie. Watching Dodo struggle in pain while Ronan is completely helpless to help her is heartbreaking, and to me, seeing how desperate these characters are in such a hopeless situation was one of the toughest things to witness. There is a moment that really sticks with me when I think about this film. A moment of true despair that I'll never be able to forget. Dodo being prevented from eating is taking an emotional and physical toll on Ronan. While Dodo sleeps, Ronan retreats to the bottom of the staircase away from Dodo. She takes a bite out of her sandwich and this completely breaks her. Something as small as being able to eat while your child can't, having the luxury of something so simple being taken away from her child, forcing her to suffer is one of the cruelest and most upsetting things a mother has ever had to do, and one of the toughest scenes I've ever had to witness in a film. It's a masterful example of storytelling without words. This moment is also amplified by Ronan's personal wish, that wish being that she wished Dodo was never a child. And that's solely because this whole ordeal is the result of decisions Ronan made 6 years ago. 6 years ago, when Ronan was first pregnant with Dodo, she went on a trip with her boyfriend at the time, Dom, and his cousin Juan, to investigate the rituals being performed in a remote clan village inhabited by some of Dom's relatives. They were essentially YouTubers who had a fascination with the paranormal and spiritual rituals. Like your Sam and Colby, except less American, obviously. I mean, there are subtitles here, but that being said, Americans are very hard to understand.
What the fuck is a Burger King?
The trio venture to this ritual site, not fully grasping the seriousness of the sacred ground. The people who inhabit this land practice an esoteric Yunnan religion that focuses on worshipping a deity known as Mother Buddha, an apparent god of misfortune that Ronan believes is cursing her and Dodo. But its influence only became intertwined with these characters' lives because of the grand taboo that they are about to commit. Wait, this seems familiar. The group finds an unconscious girl in front of a tunnel, with runes all across her body, supposedly a sacrifice from the clan to ward off evil. They decide to rescue her despite the clan's protest, and things begin to escalate, as Juan completely desecrates the entrance to the tunnel in the village that is deemed prohibited in an act of pure naivety, but a lust for adventure. The group are warned beforehand by this very girl about entering the tunnel she laid in front of, as it is forbidden by members of the clan. But the curiosity to film and uncover the source of a sudden child's crying and screaming from inside the tunnel overtakes Dom and Juan, delving deeper into this chasm of black, and slightly meddling with what lies within it. Their fate is already sealed. Dom finds himself at the foot of a golden statue that is made out in the image of the Mother Buddha deity, with a singular piece of cloth that covers her face. He lifts the veil to see her face, and then this happens.
干嘛，阿东？我搁下面啊！阿东，
Something to note here is that this moment is actually repaired vision. You see, again, this is a found footage film, with Ronan as both its director and camera person. The whole shtick being she's trying to assemble some kind of digital catalogue for some kind of greater purpose. The vision you saw, however, was not seen by Ronan at this point. She was unable to see this vision at the time because the recording was actually broken. Ming, wanting to help Dodo and Ronan by any means necessary, took it upon himself to try and fix the broken footage, in hopes it would provide some answers to their circumstances. Ming is a character who is incredibly caring of children and has grown to want to help Ronan in a battle to keep her child. Ming had always wanted to feel like a father, and in this moment, he's doing something that allows him to feel like one. But the cost is heavy. The cost is the curse itself. After he saw the original video, his health begins to deteriorate. He was becoming sick, coughing up his own teeth, bleeding from any available orifice. His condition worsens the more familiar he becomes with the events of that night. He deduced that he is definitely being attacked by the deity because he saw the raw vision of what Juan and Dom went through, and begs Ronan not to watch it as it'll kill her too. But just as he warns her, he is possessed and sends her the video footage over the phone, and then brutalizes himself. Ronan is now completely out of options. With Dodo in a critical condition and residing in an unyielding coma in hospital as her body deteriorates, the priest and his wife dying as a result of Ronan feeding Dodo, as she couldn't be treated at the hospital unless she ate something, Ming now deceased as well as plenty of her family, Ronan truly has only one option left: to confront the Mother Buddha head on and plead. I mentioned earlier that horror is able to make certain ideas, certain images and notions, something that sticks with you. And the concept that stuck with me in this film was something I never realized I was horrified of, and it's the very conception of hopelessness. I never realized just how scary the idea of there being seemingly no way to prevent something from occurring. It's not something I often think about, but the idea of fate, the idea of there is absolutely nothing you can do that can change an outcome, the idea that your life has already been written for you, to me, that feeling of entrapment is horrifying. But saying that that is the sole reason why this film scared me beyond complete words is an absolute lie. Because the hell that was soon to ensue, I found myself unable to fully comprehend. Ronan ventures into the tunnel once more, covered in runes and correcting the mistakes made by her peers 6 years ago. Whilst in this chasm, she is reflecting on her actions, exclaiming that she knows she was a selfish mother who took on a challenge far too great and at the detriment of her own daughter. Venturing deeper and deeper into the tunnel, suffering the curse in its rawest form, the golden statue appears before her. She takes the camera with her. It's the moment we've all been waiting for. You can feel the thickness of the air from the other side of the screen. Ronan appears ready to embrace the fate that awaits her. You spend all this time with Ronan, seeing everything she's been through. You hope there is some kind of compensation. When suddenly, Ronan turns the camera to herself, pulling the attention away from the altar, and looks at the camera and asks,
你们还记得那句咒语吗？如果可以的话， 请在心里面跟我再念一次。
Confusion ensues in you, unaware of what she means. There isn't anyone else inside of this place except her and you. Ronan is asking you for your help in her final moments. The incantation appears on screen again, the words translated for you, making it easier to read. You perhaps may even speak them out loud to offer some kind of comfort in what seems to be this mother's last moments. But then, Ronan follows up with the 6 scariest words I have ever heard in a film.
对不起，我骗了你们。
A tinge of fear and incertitude begins to develop inside you that grows deeper and deeper as Ronan explains the truth behind what it is you're actually watching. The Mother Buddha is a relentless and malevolent being who cannot be warded off completely. Its impact cannot be stopped, but it can be stretched. It can hurt less. The chant that Ronan asks you to recite throughout this film, both in your mind and out loud, isn't a conveyance of blessings for her daughter. It's an incantation that merely spreads the pain of the curse. It's a chant that means you accept the curse. The more people are actively undergoing it, the less of a burden it becomes on all those currently fighting it. Ronan has tricked you in order to save her daughter. This entire gallery of Ronan and Dodo's life together was made for you, showcasing just what it is you will now be fighting and what it is you are now sworn to protect. Dodo rests in your hands now, and your life belongs to Mother Buddha. This was never a video to be posted on the paranormal YouTube channel of Ronan's group. It was never a means of proving to the authorities that Ronan isn't crazy. It was never a collection of evidence to prove the existence of the paranormal, nor a reflective journal about Ronan and Dodo's life together. It was a gateway into spreading the incantation onto you to lessen the burden on Dodo. And as your mind suddenly pieces together what's going on, it's too late. The moment you turned on this movie, the moment you spoke or read the chant, the very moment you took interest in the film, you were locked in. Before you can respond, before you can utter a word, Ronan forces you to bear witness to the true face of Mother Buddha.
你丢下妹妹了。
But I'm not going to push you through that. That's a horror you can choose to seek out for yourself. Or you can live in complete bliss in not knowing the truth. This film is a lot, to say the least. It is by far the most emotionally exhausting movie I've seen in a long time. From brilliant character writing to intense and suffocating moments, with brilliant utilization of the found footage genre, Kevin Koh has created a cinematic horror masterpiece. It is by far one of the most horrific contemporary pieces of horror fiction I have ever seen. The film ends shortly after you witness the face of Mother Buddha. Ronan succumbs to the full extent of the curse, and you're left there in the tunnel, watching as she repeatedly brutalizes herself. Still shocked at this sudden revelation. It's been a couple months since I'd seen this film, but it still struck a chord in me. It compelled me to make this video after all. You see, while the idea of learning the truth and the curse itself is horrifying, and I shouldn't have to explain why the idea of being cursed by this film is so scary, but there was another thing that I found so bone-chilling about this moment. Someone you genuinely cared about, someone you thought you truly knew, lied to you. Lied to your face. Someone you wanted to see happy threw you aside. Threw you to the wolves for the sake of the one that they loved the most. For the first time in years, it made me scared. Scared of the feeling of being tossed completely aside. It makes you wonder if knowing the truth was ever really worth it. And while on the outside looking in, yeah, it is just a film. The ideas of this film, and above all else, what this moment represents is haunting. Because while I felt betrayed, I felt sympathy. And I knew in that situation, I probably would have done the same thing. Ronan is trying to carry the weight of her daughter's world on her shoulders, doing everything she can to save her, even at the cost of her own life and the lives of innocent people. I have friends and family that I find myself willing to do some pretty god-awful things if needed, if it meant being able to protect them. And that realization is scary. The truth that scares me most about this film isn't the truth of what the incantation actually means. It isn't even the truth of where my life will go now that I'm bearing this curse. In actuality, the truth that scares me the most, the truth I wish I hadn't known, is the truth behind what it truly means to love someone. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video. I know it's a lot different to what I usually do, and I appreciate you sticking by. Believe me, this is probably a bit of a one-off thing, but this year I want to embrace change. I've mentioned it many times on my streams. I want to do things I don't usually do, and this film has been stuck in my brain for so long, and I needed an outlet. And I figured, why not give this little exploration video talk commentary thing a shot? If you made it to the end and you're feeling shaken up, go watch some puppy therapy on YouTube. That always helps. Or watch some penguins. Look at those little flippers, huh? Fuck, they're so cute.